The following accounts document cases where the bonds of marriage extended beyond the grave. These are stories of wives who suffered in life and whose spirits refused to rest in death. They are presented as recorded in West Virginia's archives of unexplained phenomena. Each case, meticulously preserved as a testament to enduring justice. In the remote hills and hollows of West Virginia, where secrets often stay buried with the dead, these particular stories refuse to remain quiet. They represent a pattern of post-mortem accountability that crosses generations and geographical boundaries, each account more compelling than the last. What connects them is not just the tragedy of their endings, but the persistence of their voices from beyond the grave. 1. The Telltale Lilac Bush. The Teagard Valley River carves its way through some of West Virginia's most isolated terrain. It was here that an elderly couple lived in near-complete isolation, their marriage a subject of whispered speculation among the few neighbors who knew them. The husband was known for his volatile temper, the wife for a quiet resignation. Theirs was a union marked by decades of accumulated resentment and unspoken grievances. When the wife disappeared during the spring of 1884, the absence wasn't immediately noted. The couple kept to themselves, and the husband explained her absence by claiming she had gone to care for a sick relative in another county. Months passed, then a year. The husband began hosting gatherings at his previously reclusive home, the sounds of laughter and music carrying across the valley in stark contrast to the somber atmosphere that had previously characterized the household. The transformation was too dramatic to ignore. Neighbors noted how the husband had refurbished the home with new furniture and how he now dressed in fine clothes. The wife's prized lilac bush, which she had nurtured for 20 years, began to behave strangely. It would shake violently when the husband approached, yet remained perfectly still when others drew near. The climax came on a still summer evening when 3 young men from a neighboring farm visited. As they sat on the porch, listening to the husband boast about his newfound prosperity, the lilac bush began beating violently against the windowpane. The men described it as having a purposeful, almost human quality. The branches didn't just wave in the wind, but actively gestured toward them. The most unnerving aspect was the complete absence of wind. The air was utterly still, yet the bush thrashed as if in a storm. When the husband tried to dismiss the phenomenon, the young men grew suspicious. They returned the next morning with shovels, determined to investigate. As they began digging around the agitated bush, the husband became increasingly agitated, shouting warnings and threats. Their persistence revealed the horror that would haunt the community for generations. The roots of the lilac bush were growing directly from the skeletal hand of the missing wife, her wedding ring still visible on her finger where the roots had grown around it. The husband's scream echoed through the valley as he fled toward the river. He was never seen again, though some claim his tormented spirit still wanders the riverbanks, forever trying to escape the judgment his wife delivered from beyond the grave. The lilac bush itself was preserved by the community as a permanent memorial, and locals claim it still blooms more vigorously than any other lilac in the county, its flowers taking on a deeper purple hue each spring. 2. The oil boom of the early 1900s transformed sleepy Brooksville into a bustling town almost overnight. Into this changing landscape came Ezra Gordon, a carpenter known for his thrift and religious devotion. His marriage to the younger Sarah Garlow raised eyebrows throughout the community, with many suspecting Sarah had motives beyond affection. Ezra built a fine house for his bride on 5 acres of land, every nail driven with a precision that characterized his work. For the first few months, the marriage appeared successful. Sarah kept the house beautifully, and Ezra seemed genuinely happy. But as Brooksville grew more prosperous and lively, Sarah began spending increasing time in town, drawn to the excitement that her quiet home life lacked. The tension came to a head when oilfield supply men began frequenting the area. Sarah was seen in the company of a particular salesman from Pennsylvania, their interactions suggesting more than casual acquaintance. Ezra responded by becoming increasingly controlling, eventually installing a heavy chain in their bedroom which he would use to secure Sarah to the bedpost when he went to work. One morning, Ezra reported Sarah had run away with the salesman. He seemed genuinely distraught, showing neighbors a note he claimed she had left. He quickly sold the property to Joe and Mary Blake at a bargain price, withdrew his savings from the bank, and left the area. The Blakes were initially delighted with their new home. Their satisfaction turned to dread when, on their 3rd night in the house, they were awakened by the distinct sound of a heavy chain being dragged across the floor above them. Investigation revealed nothing. The following night, the sound returned, this time moving from the master bedroom into the hallway and down the stairs. On the 5th night, Joe and Mary decided to document the phenomenon. They lit lamps and positioned themselves to observe the hallway. Precisely at midnight, the dragging sound began again. This time, they saw the chain moving of its own accord, dragging itself down the stairs and out the front door. They followed it into the garden, where it appeared to sink into the earth near a recently turned patch of soil. The next morning, they excavated the spot and discovered Sarah Gordon's body. The chain that had bound her in life was still locked around her ankle, the other end showing signs of having been torn from its mooring. The coroner determined she had been dead for several weeks, meaning Ezra had continued living in the house with her body buried in the garden while he arranged its sale. The Blake family never spent another night in the house. Subsequent owners all reported the same phenomenon, the sound of the dragging chain leading to Sarah's grave, a ghostly repetition of her final journey from bedroom to garden. 3. The face on the wall. The mining towns of northern West Virginia in the 1920s were places of hard work and harder living. Nick Yelchik embodied this spirit until the day the railroad laid him off in March of 1927. The loss of steady work transformed him from a reliable husband into a bitter drunk who took out his frustrations on his wife and home. After 5 months of unemployment and increasing alcoholism, Nick finally secured work in the Granttown mines. His wife hoped this would mark a return to the man she had married. On his first Friday, Nick arranged for a friend to punch his time card so he could leave early to visit the liquor store before it closed. What began as a simple deception turned into a nightmare when Nick decided to explore some abandoned mine shafts. Deep in the unused sections, his lamp began to flicker. Panicking, he took wrong turn after wrong turn until he was hopelessly lost. When his lamp finally died, he was plunged into absolute darkness, the kind that mines the human soul for its deepest fears. For hours, Nick stumbled through the blackness, his shouts echoing uselessly through empty chambers. Eventually, exhaustion overcame him and he collapsed into a fitful sleep. In his dreams, he saw his wife's face floating before him, illuminated by some unseen light source. Her expression was neither angry nor forgiving, but determined. "Follow me," she repeated, her voice echoing through the dream mine shafts. When Awoka the vision remained, his wife's face hovered on the mine wall before him, casting a soft light that illuminated just enough of the tunnel to see a few feet ahead. As he moved toward it, another face would appear further down the tunnel. This ghostly guidance continued for what felt like hours until he emerged into a main shaft where other miners found him. The night watchman informed Nick that his wife had come looking for him the previous evening, concerned when he hadn't returned home. When Nick finally arrived at his house, he found it dark and silent. His wife lay in their bed, a bottle of poison on the nightstand beside her. Her note expressed the despair of watching the man she loved destroy himself, and her decision that she could no longer stand witness to his self-destruction. The experience transformed Nick Yelchich. He never drank again and became known as one of Granttown's most reliable citizens. Until his death in 1947, he would often visit the mine entrance, not Wheatfear, but with gratitude for the wife whose love had saved him even after he had destroyed everything she valued in life. 4. Bill White's wife. The oil and gas boom brought prosperity and trouble to Wetzel County in equal measure. Bill White embraced the former while creating plenty of the latter, while his wife managed their rock camp farm with quiet efficiency. Bill pursued business ventures and romantic affairs with equal enthusiasm. Mrs. White was known throughout the county as a woman of remarkable endurance. She raised their children, managed the livestock, maintained the household, and turned a blind eye to her husband's infidelities. When fever swept through the community in the summer of 1912, it was Mrs. White who fell victim, dying without the comfort of her husband's presence. He was away on business with one of his Bill's remarriage just 3 months after his wife's death shocked the community. His new bride was a younger woman from a wealthy family, and Bill seemed determined to leave his past behind. The farm, however, had other ideas. The phenomena began subtly. Oil workers drilling on the property reported seeing a woman in old-fashioned clothing watching them from near the engine house. The family began hearing noises, gravel being dumped on the roof, the sound of milking from an empty barn, the rattle of pots and pans in the kitchen when no one was cooking. The ghostly activity intensified over time. The figure began appearing more frequently, often seen moving between the house and the spring house, repeating the chores that had defined Mrs. White's life. One evening, as Bill returned from the fields, the apparition materialized directly before him near the apple tree in the backyard. In a voice witnesses described as filled with sorrow rather than anger, she said, "Bill, here is where you knocked me down with a chair." Following this encounter, misfortune settled over the White farm like a shroud. Cattle sickened, horses died mysteriously, crops failed. Bill's new wife developed a lingering illness that doctors couldn't diagnose. After their third child was stillborn, the couple abandoned the farm and left the county. The new owners reported no unusual activity, suggesting that Mrs. White's ghost had achieved what she sought, not revenge, but the removal of the woman who had taken her place and the man who had failed to appreciate her devotion. 5. Uncle Tom. How the small coal mining town of Copon depended on the rhythms of agriculture as much as mining. Uncle Tom Howe and his wife exemplified the hard-working farming families that formed the backbone of the community. Their marriage appeared to be a partnership of equals, with both working from dawn until dusk to maintain their farm. The wheat harvest of autumn 1903 promised to be their most successful yet. When the harvesters arrived with their mowing machines, the timing couldn't have been worse. Tom's wife had taken seriously ill the previous night. As the machines began cutting the golden wheat, Tom's wife called out from her sickbed, her voice growing increasingly weak. The harvesters noticed Tom's distraction, but said nothing as he continued working. When his wife's calls became more desperate, one of the workers suggested he check on her. Tom returned to the fields minutes later, his face grim. "She wants a doctor," he told the men, "but this wheat won't harvest itself." By the time the last sheaf was gathered, darkness had fallen. Tom went into the house and found his wife dead, her hands still outstretched toward the door as if waiting for help that never came. The funeral was well attended, with many community members noting Tom's stoic demeanor. The haunting began that same night. The piano his wife had played every evening began playing itself, the music starting softly, then building in volume until it filled the entire house. Neighbors reported hearing the music from the road, recognizing the particular songs the dead woman had favored. Tom tried everything to stop the phenomena. He locked the keyboard, removed the hammers, even threatened to burn the instrument. Nothing worked. The ghostly concerts continued night after night, the music growing increasingly frantic and discordant as Tom's mental state deteriorated. Within 6 months, Tom Howe was committed to the Weston Asylum, where he would spend the remaining 10 years of his life. The piano stopped playing the day he was taken away, and the farm passed 2 relatives who reported no further disturbances. The community understood the message. Some neglect cannot be forgiven, even in death. 6. The tragedy at the spring. Sam Walton's jealousy was legendary in their small community. Though few understood, it was largely performance designed to conceal his affair with his neighbor's adopted daughter. His wife Emily endured his accusations with quiet dignity, believing her faithfulness would eventually reassure him. The truth emerged one evening when Emily went to fetch their missing milk cow. In a secluded corner of the pasture, she stumbled upon Sam and the young German girl Hilda in a compromising embrace. Though Emily retreated quickly, the damage was done. Sam knew he had been discovered. That night, Sam waited at the spring where Emily always drew water for cleaning. As she knelt by the water's edge, Sam emerged from the spruce thicket, grabbed her hair, and slit her throat. He held her head underwater until the last bubble of air escaped, then drained the pond below the spring to bury her in its muddy bottom. Sam reported Emily missing the next day, telling neighbors she had threatened to leave him. For weeks, he maintained the fiction, though neighbors noted his increasingly haggard appearance and strange behavior. He stopped drawing water from the spring, claiming the taste had changed, and began hearing sounds of household activity coming from his empty home. The haunting intensified as summer turned to fall. The spruce trees around the spring seemed to whisper Emily's name when the wind blew. The cows refused to be milked near the spring, becoming agitated and difficult to handle. Most disturbingly, Sam began seeing reflections of Emily's face in the spring water, her expression accusatory rather than pleading. Tidor Hutt of 1904 provided the final revelation. As the spring dried up for the first time in living memory, a neighbor boy noticed cloth protruding from the cracked mud at the pond's bottom. The discovery of Emily's body, perfectly preserved in the cold mud, confirmed what many had suspected. Sam confessed immediately, his resistance broken by months of ghostly torment. He was committed to an asylum where he would spend his remaining years describing the ghost of his wife to anyone who would listen. The farm was abandoned, and locals reported that 4 years afterward, on the anniversary of the murder, the spring water would run red, and the sound of a woman screaming could be heard from the spruce grove. 7. The Blue Boy Hotel, from 1870 to 1895. The Blue Boy Hotel in Shinston operated under the shadow of the Everett brothers' criminal enterprises. Bill and Melvin Everett had perfected a system of separating visitors from their money through rigged poker games, staged robberies, and in Bill's case, marriage and murder. The hotel's basement pool room and front saloon provided the perfect front for their operations. Wealthy guests were encouraged to declare their assets for security reasons. Information the brothers used to determine who would be targeted. Melvin excelled at the financial schemes, while Bill specialized in the personal tragedies. Wealthy women, then burying them beneath the hotel's barn. The brothers also maintained a profitable cattle rustling operation, hiding stolen livestock at a remote farm until brands could be changed, then selling them to out-of-state buyers who never reached home alive. Bill's death in 1890 should have ended the horror, but instead began a new chapter. Melvin began experiencing vivid dreams of his brother showing him hidden money, but always waking before the location was revealed. One night, Bill's ghost appeared at the foot of Melvin's bed, directing him to the abandoned Lucky Lady mine. Melvin found the money, thousands of dollars in cash and gold, but as he tried to leave the mine, a slate fall trapped him. Rescuers found his body days later, along with the money and a note in Bill's handwriting directing that the funds go to Melvin's widow. When the hotel was demolished to make way for town expansion, the horror of the brothers' crimes was fully revealed. The skeletons of 12 women were discovered beneath the barn, along with the remains of several cattle buyers. The discovery brought Eliza Driscoll to Shinston. His daughter had disappeared while staying at the Blue Boy Hotel years earlier. Believing the Everett brothers responsible, he courted and married Melvin's widow as an act of revenge. After their marriage, he shot her and threw her body into the West Fork River. Driscoll's victory was short-lived. The ghost of his victim began appearing to him daily, her presence growing increasingly substantial until he could no longer distinguish between the living and the dead. One rainy night, tormented beyond endurance, he drowned himself in the same river that held his victim's body. The next morning, rescuers found both bodies washed up on the riverbank. The evidence told a supernatural tale. While Driscoll's footprints showed him walking alone to the river, the returning rescuers' footprints were accompanied by a second set, those of a woman wearing the same shoes Melvin's widow had been wearing when killed. These 7 accounts from West Virginia's archives reveal a consistent pattern of post-mortem justice that transcends individual circumstances, whether through physical evidence, like the telltale lilac bush, auditory phenomena, like the dragging chain, or visual manifestations, like the face in the mine. These wronged wives found ways to speak truth when living voices had been silenced. The stories share common elements: the importance of place, the repetition of significant actions, and the persistence of the phenomena until justice is achieved. They suggest that in the mountains of West Virginia, some truths are too powerful to remain buried, and some bonds too strong to be broken by death alone. What makes these accounts particularly compelling is their documentation in multiple sources, their persistence in local memory. They serve as enduring reminders that the consequences of our actions may extend beyond what we can see or measure, and that sometimes the search for justice continues long after the grave is closed. Share your own accounts of historical mysteries and local folklore in the comments below. Subscribe for more documented cases from the archives, where the past never truly rests quietly. Until next time.